Good afternoon, Kandrola.
Hey, Arima. Nice to see you
We-
again.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see you again. It's been now 2 weeks since the end of our retreat in Nagano. Yeah, it's definitely all very fresh. We have all gone across the world. The Dakinis Whisper community is, yeah, very global. But we spent a very special time in Nagano with Kandrola, and I think that the idea for this podcast was to share some of our experience. And the Sky Dancer podcast is always centered around art and iconography as well. So to share some photos of what we saw and how we encountered Dakini and Buddhism and inspiration in this very, very special pilgrimage that we undertook.
Yeah, I'm very excited about having this kind of opportunity to have some kind of conversation with you while our memories are still fresh.
Yes,
Even
definitely.
I'm living here in Japan, but I had a very intimate experience with you guys, in terms of visiting temples, shrines, and seeing all these deities in a little bit different form from Tibetan form.
Yeah, for us as well, it was a really eye-opening experience that, there's not a single form of Japanese Buddhism. There are many, but at the same time, they have this really dynamic and close relationship, and that it's not, just a historical kind of account. It's living and, everyday people are coming to these places, and there's so much devotion going on. So yeah, I think for everyone, it was the first time to get this close and, this heartfelt experience of what we imagine Japanese Buddhism to be versus how it is for the people who live it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys had that sort of experience. For me too, it's like coming back home or meeting an old friend who had taken on a new form. For example, Dakinis, since this podcast is called the Sky Dancer podcast, Dakini takes different forms. As you know, in Tibetan tradition, we call the Kandoma, the one who moves freely in the space of awareness. A little bit abstract in a sense, like a Dakini is mysterious and all different natures, maybe awakened qualities, expressing, as you know, in five Dakini practice, we do try to connect to that awakened qualities, ferocities or clarities and so forth. But in Japan, you can see she appeared indifferently. For example, riding on a white fox. I hope you have taken the picture and you can share with us. And carrying a shelf of rice or wish fulfilling jewel. She is called Dakini the goddess of abundance, sustenance, and prosperity. So at first it seems she descended from the sky to the earth. Yet she's the same sky dancer and the same wisdom, energy, I feel, and expressing the emptiness, but also form, simply expressing herself in another culture, you can say language in Japan.
I was also so happy to see Dakini 10, especially our most significant encounter with her. Although we saw small shrines around, some of them dedicated to Dakini, some of them to Inari. I think it's very close, the worship of the two. Was on our very last day after we visited, Kandrola's home neighborhood, and were very generously offered some tea and cakes by Kandrola's sister. Right by their house was the Dakini shrine, and we do have some photos. I could share those with you. Maybe that would be
That
also
would be
nice.
nice.
So yeah, can you see this
That
one?
would be, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, this is my evening walk path, as you can see, only like 1 minute from my place. This
yeah,
is one of many, many Dakini temples dedicated to the Dakini Ten, and local people visit. So it's like a immersing or the merging or mixing with the culture, integrated in culture very intimately in Japan.
Yeah, we were very impressed by it. It was kind of on the slope of a hill, and there were a lot of trees around. I think there's a park outside. And so it's very quiet. You wouldn't maybe notice it if you were in a rush, but as you're going by, there are some of these, red gates that you can see in the middle image. A little shrine where you can come up and do your clapping and prostrating and ringing the bell. And then all of these little, very, very cute, I'd have to say, fox statues. Very much not anthropomorphic, not, mixed with human features. So that was also a new kind of way for us, I think, or for me, to experience the iconography of Dakinis, because usually we associate them with something more resembling people, but at the same time transcending that in terms of the Tibetan iconography that I've seen, or fully abstracted into elements or maybe seed syllables, things like this, but just the sweetness of an ordinary to us looking animal being both the kind of friend and embodiment of the kini was really great. But I also found, a couple of examples of paintings from Japan that have this more humanized form of Dakini, just to put it in contrast between, the images we see and then what the actual shrine has in it as well.
This is a fox, like Kitsune we call. So serve the messenger of, you can say, Inari, or the deity of fertility and abundance. When Dakini merged with the Shinto, as you may know, Shinto is an indigenous belief system or the tradition, still very much alive in Japan before the Buddhism came to Japan. So anyway, so the Kinite merged with that local Shinto belief, and she adopted the fox as her companions. So you can see the Kinite ride on the white fox. And also fox symbolize spiritually kind of messenger between the world, elusive, wise, and shape-shifting. Even in English language, like a foxy or something like that, or the mischievous little bit of that sort of characters and the shape shifting. Yeah, so it's interesting. Fox moves freely between the seen and the unseen, or the heaven and the earth, those two worlds, kind of luminal world. So Dakini in Japan is very interesting, like a beautifully embodied fusion of Buddhism and indigenous Shinto spirit.
To
Very
ask,
down to earth, you can say. Very much alive in the culture and alive in me. For example, I grown up playing around here, right? My playground was backyard of the shrine or temples, and so it's very much familiar with this culture.
yeah, that's another thing that I definitely wanted to ask you because, of course, with the way that we know Dakini in Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, there's this association of her being quite an esoteric figure. Not a lot of general Buddhists would practice her unless they're in Vajrayana, or maybe in Newari, Buddhism it's a little different. But did she become transmitted to Japan in esoteric schools and then become very popular among people and become quite accessible?
Yeah, as I said, initially, of course, Dakini both came from India, right? Then the transmitted to Tibet, to China, then came to Japan through esoteric Buddhism. Dakini Ten was one of the many goddesses or the esoteric deities. Then, as I said, she mixed with the local belief of Inari and Shinto spirit, then became a very popular deities, one of the many very popular deities for the Japanese people. And many, many shrines dedicated to the Kiniten and the Kitsune and Fox shrines everywhere, every corners you can say. I mean, nowadays, of course, big cities maybe disappearing, but still, surprisingly, in the middle of the city, even Nagano, lots of cars, back and forth. Then all of a sudden, the Dakini shrines are there or something like that.
And for the everyday practitioner, is there a specific association they have in terms of what to ask Dakini for help with?
Yeah, in terms of the relationship between local people and the Dakiniten, is like a Dakiniten is object of worship, but at the same time, that this is my relationship with Dakiniten. She symbolized again emptiness and form. It's there, but also feel living in the local people's heart. So in Tibet, Dakini teaches emptiness or the expression of the emptiness, you can say. In Japan, Dakini Ten speaks or whispers suchness, sacredness of the thing, but also takes form and help assist, especially related to the fertility. She holds the shafts of rice. There's a picture, maybe not so clear in this picture, but one of the Dakiniten's picture. She carried the rice. And so, like a Ratana Dakini, it's very much associated assisting to give birth, babies, giving wealth, prosperities, and protections, of course, lots of things. Local people bring the offering on certain specific occasions. For example, I can see in this picture, I think local people, his name here. Red fabric, can you see?
Oh, yeah.
Hanging the fox said the donor's name there. Often they donate or they maybe bringing the food. You know what's his favorite thing? Fried tofu.
Oh,
That's why I call it inari. Have you ever had the inari? Inari is the Japanese sushi stuffed fried tofu. Have you ever seen that? It's called inari.
yeah, I've seen that. I didn't
Like a
know that.
brownish kind of pocket, then the rice stuffed in it.
Right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very tasty. I
Oh, you know
have
what
to say.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
good.
That name came from that because Inari loves that. For some reason, I don't know the relationship, how they found out Inari loves that or not. But so people bring those things. I don't know nowadays they do or not, but there is a tradition.
Thank you so much for the insight into both how the general kind of beliefs around an area is, but also, yeah, some of your relationship. I think it's definitely beautiful for us as Dakini's Whisper community to see, how Dakini might have manifested in your childhood and go to that same place. Definitely a very special energy there, and even in being in this beautiful autumn landscape and not having one kind of specific focal altar, I guess, of the shrine, but really being able to move around it and see all of the different statues and gates, it
Mhm.
did remind me of that kind of form and emptiness play, because you're not fixating onto kind of one spot, but you are sensing how Inari is in the space and, in you. I think a lot of kind of uniconic traditions in Shinto that don't, maybe show the deity figure do encourage you to look around you and
Yeah.
maybe feel the deity's flavor, maybe more directly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Dakini lives in nature. Especially I can feel in Japan because I grown up there. Of course, nature, air, earth, sky, stones and trees, feels like everything is expression of Dakini. This trip was a good opportunity for me to awaken in that awareness, feeling that she's not only in some kind of abstract in the sky or mystical figure, but she's really alive in this beautiful moss, for example. Usually we ignore, but when we discover the beauty, then Dakini is here expressing, or a big rock or stone in hot springs. So beautiful, natural formation of the kind of shapes and the stones, autumn leaves, and even drinking a cup of tea. I can see Dakini in there. It brings a lot of joy, laughter, enjoyment, everything. Direct experience we had, the expression of Dakini, I feel, or the messages from Dakini.
Oh, absolutely. I think multiple times the group would be enjoying a really beautifully curated meal or a nice cup of tea in the morning, or seeing a natural feature like the mountains with the leaves turning or a waterfall, and everyone would become silent at the same time. Usually 11 people, hard to organize, to all focus, but there were those very special moments where that feeling of care and enjoyment in the body, and also the external kind of world's order, and this changing kind of nature of things was really highlighted, and suddenly didn't feel so different. There was kind of this, yeah, humble feeling of like, oh, I very much feel like a part of a process, a part of a bigger, I guess, shifting, interdependent ritual, or beautiful kind of ecosystem. Yeah, in Japanese cultural, I guess, things where, like, for example, with a meal, things are set up in a certain way and slow and patient and arranged for everybody the same. I think, it was one of the first things we did together was eat food, and you just have to shift your mindset from this, like a lot of us living in cities and here, like in Western countries, where you just eat and talk at the same time and very quickly, and everyone is ordering their own thing. But here you are, yeah, kind of like almost following the steps of a dance. Everybody has to do something at the same time, and it makes you relate to the fact that you have sustenance and food in a different way, and who prepare it, and all the care they put. It's a very creative, artistic experience. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to you guys experience that, each dish. For example, first Temple Inn we stayed. We had this kaiseki meal. The cooks spend time and energies to prepare with much care. So I wanted to, including myself, we all want to appreciate the each part of the dish. Yeah, something like that. Even in such a mundane things like a dish or the meal could be very mundane and just fill the stomach, fulfill the hunger or something like that. But then everything, if it's served with care, if we can start to be aware of it, maybe that's the place where Dakini is pointing a finger at here, pay attention.
Just to, yeah, say one last thing from me on that is that I think the influence maybe of these kind of Buddhist thought on the approach to like taking care of ourselves and the body as well, that I felt in some of these like rituals that we took part in, even in the hot springs or something like this. Like it's not seen like, oh, you're indulging too much in sensual care or something. You have to follow the austerities to be Buddhist. There is sometimes this relationship in the culture that I'm receiving Buddhism from. And actually, when you are in Japan, I guess there is this feeling that it's yeah, very middle way, very much that there is actually nothing wrong with taking your time and taking care and feeling fresh and eating well, but at the same time, it's not like just I want everything all the time, not consumeristic. There is, if it's followed, with the guidance of somebody who understands the meaning of these rituals like yourself, there is a feeling of like actually you can feel very quietly like satiated by one simple thing, and just be like, oh, this is enough. I don't feel that feeling of attachment, or this is not perfect, I want better, I want more exclusive. Yeah, you can really get into that piece. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, as a human beings, everybody has that quality, right? Inside, for example, longing for peace, happiness, and joy and enjoyment. That's nothing wrong with that. That's human nature. then whether we can listen deeply to that or not. Sometimes in modern life, we are so distracted. We don't have much chance to listen to. But sometimes, like this kind of pilgrimage, putting ourselves in an unknown, perhaps unknown places, then start listening to our heart, listening to the wind, listening to the silence, listening to the intuition, and listening to the warmth of hot springs, felt sense, this, everything assists us to reveal our true nature.
And then, have to give that care back as well.
In that, I really feel Dakini alive. Dakini appears in everything, as I was talking about. Literally everything, if we pay attention to the silence of Dakini's expression. It takes many, many forms, right? But ultimately emptiness and form and emptiness.
Wow, thank you. We're beautifully put.